Hi everyone, I'm Mark Smiley from the Global Black Belt team, focusing on data center modernization. So today in this module, I'm going to give you a kind of sneak peek to what we're doing in the Cloud Fundamentals workshop when it comes to management and monitoring. And the best way to really show this is to actually kind of dive into the portal and show you some of the aspects that we cover. So what I'm going to do is actually kind of flick over to my computer and show you some of the elements. So hopefully you can see this. So this is my my management dashboard, as I kind of like to refer to it. So really it covers the most important aspects to my network and my services running within Azure. So on the left hand side I have my application breakdown, and on the right hand side I have my security breakdown. So kind of splitting business to security there. And as you can see, obviously there's lots of colors here that we can kind of take in, but it's really important to kind of build these tiles up. And these are all native services that are kind of built into Azure, so it's a mixture of multiple services that I will run through essentially in this module and kind of give you some more detail. So really good information to kind of just come to, get a snapshot, get an understanding of kind of if it's green, amber or red within your environment, and then start to kind of dive into it. And the best place I find to kind of start there is a service we call Azure Advisor. As you can see here, it looks over 4 pillars: high availability, security, performance and cost. Very important aspects to the business, and as you can see, I've got actually no recommendations for performance, but it's picking up some elements in security, high availability and cost. And if I was to kind of click into this, it kind of actually breaks down the information for me, gives me the information, gives me the catalog to say actually if it's a high, medium or low, and also it gives me the services and resources that are actually impacted. So really useful information. And as you can see here, it's kind of referring to my first one as high is I should be using managed disks to improve my disk reliability. So super important. Again, clicking into it gives me all the information I want to. So really super kind of useful. You can also export it to CSV or PDF format. So if you wanted to create a report at the end of the month, or if you wanted to kind of gather this information and send it to another team, you could quite effectively without actually giving them access to the portal. So over the other elements, it's quite key. Security is obviously a very interesting one, and more information comes out about this every day. I find actually that most information comes from the security center here. So on the security tab in Advisor, what it's doing is pulling and collating this information here. So we have policy and compliance, resource security hygiene, and the threat protection as well. So 3 elements that are obviously kind of very important. And kind of clicking into these again, you can actually kind of hone in on the details, the computers, the services that are actually kind of affected. So here you can see in my kind of dashboard how many kind of what score I'm getting and how many instances are affected. And obviously the redder it is and the bigger it is, the more attention obviously it should be addressed to it. And if these are not important, you can actually select them and say that you are aware of it, but you're resolving it, so you don't want to report on it anymore. And this covers many aspects here, lots of information to take in. And obviously for demo purposes, it's good to kind of go look through this and kind of understand, but within your own environment, it's it's really key that you're pulling this information in and actually kind of looking over it. And you can fine tune things. If I just want to look at my VMs and computers, I can see that I've actually got 4 of 11 recommendations. Clicking on that again gives me the details. It also gives me a recommendation. So again, change control procedures, you can lift this out, put it into your change control procedures, and then put it through that process and then resolve these issues. Obviously, if it's in a dev environment, we could do this ad hoc, but most people would obviously be running these in production. So kind of moving on to the next element within Security Center and kind of Advisor is policy. So all these questions that people always ask us is, how do I ensure that I'm using data and only putting my data services within Europe? Now, what you can do is create essentially a policy to say all elements need to use Europe data centers, all of our Europe regions as well, apologies. And if a VM or a service is created outside of that, you'll get a compliancy issue pop up here to say it's non-compliant. You can see my first one here, I've said I want to use tags because obviously for billing and reporting, part of cost management, which is super key. We actually kind of say without the tags, we won't know what service is being done. So, we can actually kind of click on that get the information, and very see, you know, kind of the elements of if we're compliant or not. So, you know, overall, it's, you know, it's either going to be a green, amber, or red. And obviously, you know, as we can see here, we want to kind of, you know, make sure that there's actually a business owner, a cost code, and, you know, kind of different elements assigned to each of our instances. So a policy that you can use to enforce and, you know, drive the business in the right direction, because obviously the biggest thing and biggest issue a lot of people have with cloud environments is sprawl. They're much the same as they used to have with hypervisor sprawl. And kind of diving into the aspects of monitoring your actual endpoints, we have here an example of our dashboarding from Security Center showing the updates. You know, the updates of my Windows, my Linux, you know, servers, and essentially saying, how compliant am I? You know, how compliant am I as a business? How many critical updates do I need for my Windows estate compared to my Linux estate? And obviously, you know, kind of what servers are being affected as well. So really useful information. Quick to go through. And you can see here it's actually got some common queries that you can run as well. So give you some additional information. So I think it's, you know, it's useful again to kind of go through, and you can actually connect in if you're using SCOM and if you're using SCCM, you can actually connect it into this environment as well. Pull in the information, you know, one dashboard, you know, kind of almost to rule them all. So really kind of useful. There's the analytics element that sit behind this. I think really for the advanced users, really useful to look into. You know, in the workshop, we go through this detail quite a lot. You know, kind of running, creating your own queries, as you can see down the left-hand side, about the different assessment options, change tracking, automation, etc. And the different services you can actually target. So you can actually even target 365. So you can pull in 365, you know, kind of updates and elements and services, and, you know, and also as well as kind of maybe even look at your SQL assessment as well. So really useful. And an element that kind of steps on from that is people kind of using those Windows and Linux servers on-premise and in Azure. And they're saying, actually, how do I manage them? How do I know what they're talking to? You know, and deploying a complex system to go around and kind of probe all your endpoints, probe to understand where it's talking to, what's talking to it, is quite, you know, quite a lot of effort. So part of our service map solution covers this. So here you can see in the middle, I've got one server. It's running 2016 Windows Server. It's got two connected clients, as you can see on the left-hand side here, and it's got a living connected server, so you can see on the right-hand side. I can see its inbound and outbound connections. So obviously, within my security settings, I can actually make sure that this SQL Server box is configured with the right network security groups, so it can talk to and be talked to the elements of the, you know, different security. If I actually expand this, I can actually start to see what process is talking to which of the elements within my SQL Server. So really important, especially if you're using like IP tables in a Linux server, you can actually start to break down. And as you see here, I've just got a list of my servers, which you can also create a group. So if I was to kind of look at the aspects of grouping my my retail servers here, it loads my map, pulls the information together, and you can actually start to click into it, click into the servers, see what route it's taking, and also what server. So my SQL Server there is talking to a database here. As you can see, actually what it's doing. So it's talking to the SQL Server, which is obviously to be expected. Again, expand it, you can actually see even what database it's talking to. So really useful information, especially actually if you're going to move this server. If we were monitoring an on-premise environment, you could deploy this service, understand what it's doing, and then when you move it to Azure, you know that you've opened up the right firewall ports and moved the right servers that are talking to each other. Really useful. And then the final step is, you know, the aspects of understanding your application. So there we're looking at infrastructure and how your infrastructure networking is connecting in as well. But here what we're looking at is, you know, kind of an instance that's running, you know, certain calls to different services. So we can see here it's, you know, Azure Table, Azure Queue, and there's a data access API happening as well. So what it's doing is building an information of what the milliseconds is between these services. If there's an issue where I've potentially created some issues with some configuration here, so I've got some failures, and also the common failing requests by name, and also the slowest request by name. So again, this gives me the intelligence to go available for on-premise workloads and, you know, Azure workloads obviously, and it can build intelligence of what my service is doing. So when I hit a problem, somebody doesn't turn around to me and just say, oh, I think it's the network, or I think it's the application. Here we can actually kind of hone in and actually kind of drive into the detail. And as well as that, you can draw the intelligence map of how everything is talking to each other. So here we have cross communication for this database. So if we were to do something to this database, we obviously need to talk to these business owners of this website and this website, so we can actually make sure that this database is functioning correctly if we were to do any work on it. So that was a bit of a snapshot of there are different elements of the management and monitoring solutions that we have within Azure and that we cover in the workshop. And obviously we go into a lot more detail, but today I just kind of wanted to give you a bit of a snapshot of what we're doing and what we kind of cover. So look forward to kind of seeing you and diving into this detail, because it's super important that we do so. So thank you for your time.